I'd like to welcome you to another segment of Recovery Live Global. Man, Recovery Live Global is on the move. It's out here in the community. We're interviewing not just participants, as we call them, but now we're taking on another vineyard that we're interviewing providers that's out in the community that's doing so much good work. And I have with me today Miss Kenyatta Stevens, who's with Black Family Development. We're right now at the Holloman's Recreational Center. And it's interesting, they had a workshop here where they was trying to educate seniors on how not to fall into fraud and fall into some of the things that's out here to take away their long-term benefits and things like that. So I enjoyed that meeting. And now we're here with Miss Kenyatta Stevenson, the CEO of Black Family Development. And she came highly recommended. Dwayne, she came highly recommended. So I wanted to just come and interview you and talk to you about the community, what's going on, what we're doing, and that you could shed some light on Black Family Development, where it came from, what's your mission, where you're going, what you see, what you don't see, any barriers. So I'm going to just let you talk. I mean, let you just go.
Thank you. Well, first
Yes,
of all, Jesse Washington, I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. I thank you for, the work that you are doing to elevate recovery and how recovery looks in so many different facets of well-being.
Okay.
And so it's an honor to be here. As was said, I am Kenyatta Stevens, and I am so honored to represent the men and women of Black Family Development as an organization. Many don't know, we've been around for 45 years. And another fact that I think is important for the community to know is outside of the child welfare opportunity to serve, that proposal that first started our organization 45 years ago, helping us to keep families together. Our second area of programming was substance use.
Okay.
And so we have been a substance use provider on the treatment side as well as on the prevention side for over 40 years.
Okay.
And so as an organization, our mission is to strengthen and enhance the lives of children, youth, and families through partnerships. That's a key word I'll come back to in a moment.
Okay.
Through partnerships that create strong, vibrant schools, homes, and communities.
Okay.
And so what you saw today and you were sharing with your audience members was a portion of how we fulfill that mission. We are so honored to partner with residents, particularly today. We're in the Heilman Recreation Center, as you mentioned, because one of the key partners would be the Osborne and Denby community members and all of those block clubs that represent that community. So one aspect of what we were talking about is Alcohol Awareness Month, which is this month. And so we had young men who are part of our My Brother's Keeper mentoring program that was started by President Obama. We were also blessed to have matching funds from the Skillman Foundation so that we could help build capacity amongst young boys and men of color. And so they actually were also a part of today's meeting with the residents in Osborne and Denby. And each of them talked about the need to really raise awareness about alcohol prevention.
Okay.
What's powerful for us is that on the prevention side of the work that we do, we want to pass the message on because we have seen not just the rise of a lot of substance abuse temptations because of environmental factors that many of our residents live in, but for young men themselves to be able to learn the facts about why it's important not to use, how it impacts the whole body, and then to learn it well enough to teach an audience of about 100 people why they have chosen not to use is a message that we want to get out, not just to young people, but even the seniors, because we know seniors are impacted by many of those temptations to self-medicate through artificial substances. And so we're proud to be here, and we're proud to get the prevention message out just as strongly as the treatment message.
You said a mouthful. A lot of times the body don't know if your primary care wrote the prescription and you got it from Rite Aid and Walmarts and wherever the pharmaceutical companies were. The body don't know whether the doctor wrote the prescription or you pulled it from a street level. Once the substance really is within the system, the body don't know where it came from. It's just reacting. And so the education as it relate to pharmaceuticals as well as street drugs, the body respond the same way.
That's right.
And so we got to really look at that thing. And, I was talking with some of the seniors before, and some of them have a tendency to have early stage dementia, which means they forget that they took their medication at 9 o'clock and then took it again at 12 o'clock. And now that's over, you overtaking it, which can cause some real issues with the medications and things that's involved. I was on that task force where we was introducing the Narcan kits to the churches, to the seniors, and to everybody, because you never know when you're going to run into an event that you can't change a death, but you can change an overdose.
That's right.
And you can do it through having education and having Narcan kits available. The police got them, the EMS got them, and I got them, and different places have them, so that we can actually, if we see it, we can move in there and actually change an overdose rather than a death. So with this fentanyl and all of the different things that's going on in the community today, that I think DWIN and their effort to get more Narcan kits into the hands of the community is a beautiful thing.
That's right.
Black Family Development, man, you guys talking about treatment, prevention, and been around for 45 years and things like that. What do you see that could be some of the barriers that we may have with getting this information out, getting the word out? I like how you're doing it, because you're doing it right here in the community centers. I mean, they got swimming here, basketball, ping pong, all kinds of events, and people coming into the building. It's an excellent place because a lot of people don't come to the treatment centers, the prevention centers, and the church houses and things like that. Sometimes you got to bring the information right down here where the people are. So I like what you guys is doing right here.
Thank you. You asked a very good question in terms of what do we think might be some barriers. And one is access. You just identified it.
Okay,
I think sometimes we have to take information, and sometimes we have to repackage it in a way that makes it safe for people to receive it in places where they might not normally be expecting to receive it. That is one of the reasons why our staff diligently participate in community events as partners with block clubs and associations, with recreational centers. It's important to us because through this partnership, we are blessed to have residents and association directors share with us some of the specific things happening in the community. And when they bring those things to us, it's forums such as these that we can bring young people who are the same age as some of the young people who are attending the meetings and share the impact of the use of substances. And so while they came for a good meal, they came for community resources, what we were able to do today is share information to help reduce stigma. That's another barrier, but to help reduce stigma and share information with residents that they may not have necessarily knew that they were coming for, but now they've left more equipped. I think another barrier is how we share information. You made a very important point earlier. You said that the brain cannot distinguish between a medication that a physician may have ordered in a prescription for us and then perhaps a street drug. And so I think that's important to share with your audience today and all the other audiences that you reach and that we're able to reach as well. Because, God made our brains to have certain chemicals, right?
Yes.
Those are normal chemicals. They were intentional chemicals because they help regulate things like sleep, focus, and concentration, how we feel in the morning. Do we have the motivation to get up? Those brain chemicals are as normal as our bones. We all have bones in order to move. But some of the brain chemicals we have names, such as they're called neurotransmitters. So why am I going all scientific and deep? Because what happens is when we see young people, we see adults who said, man, I just don't feel like myself. I don't feel well. Something's wrong. I'm anxious and I need to calm down. And so sometimes it may be because their serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, is off. So in some cases, when people have access to a doctor and they have insurance for a doctor, they'll say, can you write me a prescription for that medication? But if we don't have access to a doctor, or we don't think that that's something we should go to a doctor about because it's not sugar or high blood pressure, then we say, what's going on? And someone may say to us as a neighbor, well, I just take a sniff of this. And marijuana can help make you feel less anxious, less nervous. Why? Because the chemicals in our brain, if we have a decrease of one of those neurotransmitters, sometimes those drugs in the street have the effect similar to medication because they make that brain feel like, oh, I'm getting more of that chemical that I need to not feel as anxious, or I'm getting more of that chemical so I don't feel as depressed. It's the education that makes a difference. And so we've got to share mental health, the desire to feel normal is appropriate and normal. But how we address that when we look at health can be done in a multiplicity of ways. It could be developing new relationships. It could be developing a new diet. And so there are some kinds of foods even that we can take into our body
that will give us the stimulant that we need or that we're getting from other substance use disorder. And I tell you something, the law now have passed laws out there that if you're driving a car, a high-low, a butcher, a barber, or whatever your profession is, that a substance is impacted because it blocks the communication system with the central nervous system and your limbs and different things like that. That's why they pull you over and give you a ticket for impaired driving. Because your brain usually signal the body and the central nervous system to move and have its being. But when I'm under the influence of any type of mood altering chemical, then the communication between the central nervous system is blocked. And that's why they give you medication sometimes when you excruciating pain, because they don't want you to walk around in the pain. You can block the pain from traveling to the brain through some kind of opiate or some kind of drug. And that's fine. They told me that marijuana is a better take on blocking the pain than the opioid. And so therefore they're using the cannabis to block the pain because it's natural and it's more user-friendly to the system and to the body. But you got to be careful with that because when you're doing that, you blocking not just the pain, but you blocking your reaction time as it relates to, say, a car, you driving on the freeway or you're driving on the street, a ball come across the street. My brain tell me that a child may be chasing the ball. But when I'm under the influence of a marijuana, a joint, or alcohol, anything like that, or Tylenol, then what happens is the brain don't send the signal as fast as it would. And so my feet don't get the message that a child may be behind the ball and hit the brakes. And then there you go. Oops, there it is.
So true.
So fast, so quick. And so late. That's why they say that we have to watch operating machinery when we're on any type of medications and things like that. So it's important to educate people, the community, even the church need this education to understand that, hey, you can't be sharing each other's medication.
No.
What worked good for you may not work good for you, and different things like that. And so as much education as we can get out into the community and to the schools and to the churches and everywhere about this thing called substance abuse and how it works. Now, the police don't care because they'll pull you over and give you a ticket for impaired driving. They know about that. And when they do their toxicology reports, they'll find out that the nanograms that was in your system was higher and lower. And if you blow so many points, then you drunk driving. I mean, and you may not say it,
Right.
but you drunk driving. And I was at Red Lobster's the other day, and I looked around, and it seemed like everybody was having a drink before they shrimps and they lobsters. But they failed to realize that when they got up from the restaurant and got behind the wheel of the car, that that they was impaired.
Our actions have consequences, right?
Yes, yes.
And so, as I was listening and following several things that you said, you even alluded to the impact on children, whether I'm behind a wheel and a child comes in front of me, or a child is watching us as adults take substances into our body. That caused me to say, I want to share with your audience that with your show being called Recovery Live Global, recovery means that we also have to live a lifestyle of recovery for those around us. And I think when we think about our young people today, vaping has become very popular, even amongst people of color now, where it wasn't necessarily an attraction to children of color when it first kind of became on the scene in the African American community. But now we're seeing rises, incremental rises. And so when we think about living a life of recovery, the education is important because young people don't know that from that first vape, the kinds of chemicals and substances used to create the vaping intoxicants are so addictive that from the first vape, literally, there are synapses that are often fried in the brain.
Oh, no.
And then literally trigger an addiction from the first vape because the content of addictive material in vaping is so dangerous to young people's brains in recovery that I think for your audience, it's important for them to know that. There are studies that often now compare whether it's the marijuana content or the vaping content that from that which was known in life and what was it? The livestock. Oh, forgive me. The movement in the 60s, I think wherein folks came in Woodstock, where they came in and they were using substances. And I think what a lot of us don't know is that the marijuana content from Woodstock was far less than what it is today.
Correct.
And so that piece of education, I think, is important, that recovery for us as adults is how we live. Do young people see us choosing whole foods or using meditation or using yoga or using basketball or using, working out, even if it's something that they find on YouTube on your phone as a way of handling our stress? Or do they see us picking up a drink or picking up a substance or smoking a substance? And so young people live out what we do, not necessarily what we say.
Yeah.
And so I think when we think about recovery, that's a message I think that's important to share because education really means that we elevate, that our lifestyle needs to speak, that we literally value and believe in recovery, because if our lifestyle doesn't show it, then children emulate what we do.
That's correct. They told me that you remember 14% of what you hear and 35% of what you see.
That's right.
We have to model the message.
That's right.
The message got to be modeled. And how do you model the message? And you got to remember the secondary issues to my drinking, my drugging.
That's right.
Because you can accidentally, unbeknown to you, if you're pregnant.
That's right.
And you participating, then you are actually, the child is participating.
That's right.
Unbeknown to the child.
That's right.
That's while you carrying the child, and now the child can come into this world with what they call that, disorders or psychological disorders, medical disorders, or addictions that they had nothing to do with.
That's right.
And so they could be born like that. So we got to look at it now from so many different levels.
That's right. That's right.
That we're depositing information. And to do it like that, here you got a child that's born into the world that's been high with the mother.
That's right.
Every 2 weeks.
That's right.
And now they're born into the world and wondering why. They have a propensity to move themselves toward drugs. That's why I tell my children, don't eat so much of that salt. You know what I'm saying? Because it's genetic.
That's right.
When your grandparents had high blood pressure and you're on both sides of the family, then you have to educate the children.
That's right.
Watch the salt intake
That's
because
right.
it's genetically,
That's right.
you could have genetics that you could become that. That's why I do genograms so that I can open up the mindset of an individual so they can see that some of it is not me picking up, but my daddy picked up and my granddaddy picked up. And the Bible talks about that sometimes we have to break generational curses and things like that. So it's man, it's just so much that this platform called Recovery Live Global, man, we are on the move. I'm trying to bring the best of the best to the camera that they can get information out here. We're all over the globe. They're not just watching us in Detroit and Michigan. They're in Florida, they're in Africa, and they're all over the place getting this education.
Well, you're talking about environmental health.
Yes.
When you talk about the impact, of fetal alcohol syndrome, and you were talking about that earlier, I'm glad you mentioned it because I think recovery and health really does look at the kinds of resources around you so that there are options. When I think about environmental health, we recently started a program, with a treatment program with the Michigan Department of Corrections. And it really is what's called a woman-specific program, but it's particularly targeting females who are returning citizens, who are returning back to their community. And our goal, our job, is really to layer on as much support in all of the environmental needs that they may have, whether those needs are a support and a recovery group, whether they're childcare, whether it's information about how to access first month's rent and security deposit, food, all of those environmental factors feed into whether or not a person is able to stay focused on the recovery. If they're worried about the absence of basic needs, if they're worried about their children, if they themselves were exposed to substances or even encouraged to use substances as children, we need to be able to give the supports, the encouragement, the wraparound services, as well as the treatment tools to continue to stay on their pathway of recovery. And so we're excited to be in partnership with Wayne County as well as the Michigan Department of Corrections to provide that kind of environmental health and support, particularly to young women who are returning citizens.
And I like that. And I like that term that you use, returning citizens and not ex-offenders. It's a user-friendly term that calls people to not feel like the stigma is broken on as it relates to that. And I'm noticing now that you have a lot of funding and a lot of programs that's actually going into the penal system and taking the person 6 months before they release from prison and doing case management and setting them up with housing, food stamps, telephones, family reunification, and all of the support services. Now you're breaking recidivism.
That's right.
And it's hard to break recidivism, like you say, when I got a need and my need can't be supported.
That's right.
The first thing I'm going to do is go back to what I know.
That's right.
And when I go back to what I know, some of the things that I've learned, some of the things that I've known is crossing lines, boundary lines like laws and things like that. And the next thing you know, I'm either in recidivism or even in relapse. And I'm back where I started from. When you hungry, you do what you do. I mean, you do what you know. A woman with children, the children don't have nothing to eat. I mean, it's just a God-given innate inside of a woman that I got to feed my children.
That's right.
And and I'm not saying do anything, but I'll cross some of those boundaries to get what I need to feed my children. So the support is strongly needed and supported. And that's what the penal system, from a lot of them coming out on parole, a lot of them coming out on probations and things like that. And we got to give them the support that they need to be able to stop some of the recidivism and all. I mean, if you can just get what you need,
That's right.
And we've been introducing entrepreneurship to a lot of the men that's coming out of the penal system because they're so skilled.
That's right. That's right.
They're so skilled. Don't you know that a drug dealer today knows security? He know marketing.
That's right.
He know inventory.
Right.
He know all of these skill sets that he used in the negative street world he could flip it and turn that same skill set in a positive and get a positive legal product.
Absolutely.
And then use the same skill set with a legal. So in other words, just change your product.
Right.
You ain't got to change everything you know. Change your product. And you could be successful where you was trying to be successful in a negative world. You could be successful in a positive world by just changing your product. I do groups and classes to try to get them to change their product and then let them know that the skills that they had to go down the black road, they could use them same skills to go down the bright road. And that's by changing the product. And people gravitate to that. And then you got a lot of individuals that when they're in the courtroom, they say that I was a user. Why? Because the judges is user friendly to users more so than dealers.
Sure.
So they took a line of a user, but they never used. They was entrepreneurs. They was, in other words, they had money addictions.
Right.
And so now you got to change that around. So I'm enjoying what we're doing. I'm enjoying the conversations that we're having. Man, it's a beautiful thing. If you had something that you wanted to leave with our global audience, I'm going to turn it over to you and just let you talk to our global audience and just say what you would have to say at this point.
I would say hope is here. To your audience, hope is here. You know, you just talked about using transferable skills. And no matter where your situation is today, you have skills, you have worth. God did not make a mistake when he created you. And so as you move in the direction of recovery, there are resources. I will share, Mr. Washington, in closing, that Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network has a broad base of support here in the city, throughout Wayne County, and there are always resources. You talked about bringing resources to the front door, making them accessible. We are blessed in partnership with Detroit Wayne Integrated Network to also have a mobile unit. We were sharing a little bit about the mobile unit resources even today here at the Recreational Center. And so I will share 2 phone numbers with your audience because sometimes those of us, and I include myself, who walk through challenges and we may have transferable skills, the stigma sometimes blocks the door of us feeling comfortable reaching out for help. So there are 2 phone numbers for your listening audience. I'll give the first one. This is to our main office. And if you're not sure of where to go and what to look for, call 313-758-0150. I'll read it. I'll say it one more time. 313-758-0150. That is the phone number to our main office. We have staff who are standing by, ready to receive services. We even have a 24-hour emergency hotline number if over the weekend anybody needs some support or services. The second number I will give is 1-844-SEE, as in SEE, HOPE, HOPE. And that is the 1-800 number to our mobile service. It's 1-844-SEE, SEE, HOPE, HOPE. And door-to-door services, we are proud to partner with residents, community leaders, other nonprofits, the police precincts to provide door-to-door access to resources so that you can begin to use all of those innate skills and talents that you've been given to move into the recovery pathway. Hope is here.
Yes, we thank you. This has been another segment of Recovery Live Global. I am your host, Jesse Washington Jr., and I have with me today Kenyatta Stevens from Black Family Development. Take this information, share it, like it, move it around. We're doing great things for the community. We'll see you next week.